We're ditching the quick fixes and diving deep into what really makes men thrive. You're listening to the Man Unmedicated podcast with Rob Kress. All right, welcome everyone. Rob Kress here with another episode of Man Unmedicated podcast. Appreciate that you're here. And the topic today, gonna dive in a little more deeper, I guess, or a little deeper to some of the conversations that we've already had. I touched into what is Man Unmedicated and what does that really mean. And I want to actually talk about pain today and how pain can be, there's this alchemizing pathway from pain to potential and even purpose. So pain often creates a challenge that we're actually meant to advance to. We're meant to approach. We're meant to not divert. Now, when I talk about pain, the pain can be physical. The pain can be emotional. The pain can be spiritual. The pain can come at us in many different ways. It could be from our relationships. The pain can be many different avenues. And obviously it could be physical. And that's what I want to share with you. So maybe get a little vulnerable maybe at this point to kind of step into my story, kind of enhance what we've already talked about. It's not that we can have many of these pain as the portals throughout our existence in our life. Kind of like we can have many hero's journeys. And, all this falls very much in line if you look at a hero's journey, because, when you get to that inner cave and then you look at that, well, first of all, it's crossing the threshold, right? Like from our normal, ordinary world into something that excites us and interests us and evokes us to maybe think greater, higher, and bigger. And then when we get to that inner cave with the dragon protecting and guarding what literally turns out to be our elixir. That's the fight we stand up to. That's the fight that we approach, which often can bring turmoil, can bring challenge, can bring us questioning our own path and our own way of being. Probably another good extrapolation or example of this would be when you look at like the second mountain theory and the two mountains, kind of like our first mountain that we climb is us kind of living our life for the expectations of society and those around us, our past conditions, our familial beliefs, where when we get to that second mountain, that talks about purpose, that talks about our own authenticity and who we are and what we want to truly accomplish, right? There's been a saying that said, recognize I made it to the top of the ladder, but I looked down and I saw that the ladder's been leaning up against the wrong wall all along, right? So that's a path to purpose and often potential. And as you know, and I've said it before, much of this podcast really comes from the quote of living quiet lives of desperation, the masses of men, which I think is accurate. I think it's true. And that's why we're here. One, as men, we've been never really taught to feel, to recognize our emotions. It's been a lot of suppressing. Females oftentimes have been taught to not express their emotions, especially things like anger. And I think that would be as accurate for men too, but it's an easy thing to blow off for men, right? If you freak out. But once again, those freak out stages are usually coming out the consequence of suppressing the emotions and the pain for some time, or whatever the emotion might be. Now, where did this kind of topic come from? It was about a month ago. Kay and I were down in Dallas, Texas, and we were doing a presentation for the agricultural community, actually, which is pretty cool. So it was kind of like, farmers and ranchers. And we've got friends and acquaintances that actually are in the agriculture community as far as coaching and working with farmers and ranchers and how to optimize their practices and their businesses and their way of life. And, this couple who the one's actually a pharmacist who's been getting into functional medicine, which is really exciting. So we're seeing a true farm to pharmacy functionally, right? But what they brought into their group is a strong aspect of whole body approach, mental, physical, emotional wellness, and the recognition and the recognizing of that. So Kay and I, when we went down there, we're like, all right, we're kind of putting our speeches together on the way and really kind of dialing into and being introspective on our own personal journeys. And what was interesting is we really never got into it. So I'm sharing it with you now. It was more of an open Q&A, and it was really a great great conversation that we had with the community. And, what's really wild is, when I coach other pharmacists in my Beyond the Labs training, we talk about niche, finding your niche. But what was really cool about this group, the ag community, is, maybe with our way of life, you wouldn't have thought that it was like a niche, but, we're all dealing with some of the same issues, folks, So there was absolutely a relatability there in an area where maybe you wouldn't expect to find it, which is really cool. So without further ado, I'm going to be sharing a graphic with you as part of this podcast. And the graphic basically is a traverse of some mountains. Now, what it suggests is that oftentimes, and when you think about Man Unmedicated, well, what is a man medicated? A man medicated is a man of lack of feeling. And the approach is we do need to feel to heal. Now, that being said, what we do with our clients and our patients is all the time, say if they are coming to us on a lot of medications or whatever it might be, we'll use Zoloft as an example. Keeps serotonin floating in the bloodstream. Serotonin's an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So it blocks out this influx of excitatory messages we have coming to us from the outside world and from the inside world. It numbs us. People basically say, I don't feel, I don't cry anymore, which is a very important barometer. There's healing in crying and expressing one's emotions. Now, this is not common sentiment, right? But it's true. And this is for men, women, and everyone. We need to feel to heal. So that is recognizing that. So oftentimes when you step someone on that approach, it's like, what can we pull away to begin to feel, to step into this healing process? Now, and I'm not saying this is all the time, but if we've lived a life of constant suppression of the pain, and, in my story, if you remember, I was born medicated. My mom had complete anesthesia on her when she had me. She was pretty much, right? I mean, that was the thing to do in 1970, apparently. So I kind of, and then, and this opens up, we're going to get into another conversation. I'm going to talk about birth story and how that aligns. Actually, I've given this training to my pharmacist. I think it'd be very appropriate here. But as I said, I was kind of conditioned into pain as a bad thing, not recognizing it's actually a portal of growth that we need. But what we can do is we can help modify that when we can do it with the proper awareness of what pain can actually give us. Was it Eleanor Roosevelt said, do something every day that scares you? A lot of people don't want to feel that. They don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. But when we isolate ourselves so much to that degree, we don't really, we just keep ourselves too safe. And I think that's another thing of maybe this generation of children coming up where they've been so protected. I'm not saying all of them, I'm not saying the whole generation, but they've been actually taught almost not to feel, or bad feelings are bad, you don't want to approach it. So what I want to share with you is this idea, this theory, this concept that, one, if we are in a numb state, we want to wake up and we want to feel, because we do need to feel to heal. We need to recognize what that portal might be, the portal of pain, and how we can advance it and step through it. Because honestly, what that will take you is, I think this is so appropriate. And to me, this has been the beauty of functional medicine and the beyond functional medicine approach that we've taken. And it's a quote by Rick Rubin that says, the better you feel, the better things go. So when we can get through those challenges, when we can grow, when we can learn, we get to a faith space where physically we feel better. Emotionally, we feel better. Mentally, spiritually, relationship-wise, we feel better. And the better things go. It's like falling into the zone. And this is another teaching and training I'll share with you, recognizing our nervous system, the bouncing back and forth between the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, and the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight, and where we need to be. So I was looking back as I was putting the speech together, I was looking back on my own life, and I saw that there was two distinct portals of pain, and recognizing kind of what they taught me. Now, if you remember in a previous episode, I talked about my back pain. I was kind of born into a family of back pain, not genetic, more of a conditioned approach. And that led me to, in 1998, eventually getting lower back surgery. But that also led me to recognizing that even with the back surgery, And 6 weeks later, I was on my snowboard. I was beating my back up any way I possibly could. 2 to 3 weeks down in Costa Rica, doing what I could, not a wince of pain. But when I walked back into the pharmacy that I kind of allowed to run on autopilot, right when I walked in that door, sciatica, pain dropped me to my knees. It felt like it felt like pre-surgery, basically. So what is that? So I recognize there is that mind-body element to it. And it was literally the mind-body that was my entrance into functional medicine. A lot of people have a personal health issue that it has not been solved, or they've been frustrated or disenchanted with conventional medicine that'll get them into what would be functional medicine, right? Looking for a different approach, a complementary approach. Searching areas they haven't searched. Now, my interest it was just basically, oh my God, look at this unconscious element that it had on me. So my first portal was a physical pain. How did that present? Well, it literally presented in many times with extreme physical pain, sciatica, lack of mobility. There was times I'd be so locked up. I remember I would try to cough. It would almost put me into tears. I even remember after the whole surgery thing, and at a particular stressful time in my life, I would say this was around 2004, 2006 maybe, which was literally opening up to my portal number 2. So first portal came in 98, and that was being built up through all my younger years. When I was playing soccer, suddenly my back would stiffen up after a bad game, whatever it might be, or inconsequential stuff like picking up a sock. In pharmacy school, seeing a chiropractor, having my back being really stiff, being in a lot of pain, sitting on the train, actually going down to Philadelphia from Doylestown, getting into Jackson, Wyoming, snowboarding a lot. But once again, it's this thing that came back. I'm running a pharmacy, a lot of responsibility. If you look at the symbolism of lower back pain, it's usually control issues, which that was the knowledge for me. That was the level of growth. So for me, what I learned from it and gained from it was, first of all, the aspect of the true psychosomatic response, that our emotions absolutely can dictate our physical health. Right? Now, what I also like to do in my practice, I like to strengthen people physically. And I like to do that so we can actually mount the mental and the physical challenges. Sometimes it's a balance with all. So what I learned from that was that mind-body aspect to it, which was absolutely critical. It was a gift. And remember, these pains are gifts, right? Because how else would I have not known that emotions cause disease if I did not actually experience it myself? And you can look at the literature. It's prevalent. All the great psychotherapists and psychologists of past years incite that, and they talk about that. So now what happens is I recognize that, right? I'm out in Jackson, Wyoming, and I get that book by Dr. John Sarno, and I start to learn, holy shit, my subconscious, my unthoughtful conscious thoughts, right, create emotions that literally can create something called ischemia, which is a reduction of blood flow or oxygen to an area that can elicit pain that is ultimately a distraction from something that's going on in my outside world. What a gift to recognize that. Now, did I take that gift and run with it? Only to the point of reduction of my back pain, because there's deeper levels that you go, right? That I went. So what happened then? So then life moves on, time to leave Jackson Hole, ended up in Southwest Michigan, opened a pharmacy, which was mostly compounded nutrition. I was doing my whole functional medicine thing. It was literally my gateway into start doing that, the compound and the nutrition, kinesiology and all that. I remember I was looking to expand into pharmacy marketing, helping other pharmacies build their practice and business. And there was a software that I was interested in, which was called Infusionsoft. You probably heard of it now, right? It's a monthly thing now. Back then, I think it was about, I don't know, $3,500, $4,000 or $5,000 or something like that. But Dan Kennedy was in partnership with them. Dan Kennedy is a master copywriter. He was someone that I studied. I've studied Dan Kennedy, Clayton Makepeace, John Carlton, Frank Kern, my 4 favorites that over the years. But Dan Kennedy was working with Infusionsoft, and he was given a presentation in Chicago. Now, around this time, lower back stuff. And it went up to my neck and I was tight. I literally remember driving into Chicago in so much pain. Literally like trying to look to see if a car was coming up was an impossible one. I was just gripping in pain. And this is the first time it happened in a very, very long time. So there was something going in my world. I realized that my subconscious was looking to divert my conscious aspect to it. And a lot of it had to do with my business and the lack of control that went on. I eventually sold that business because I just wasn't happy with it. But probably had to do with me expanding it at the same time, at least into the software realm, which I did walk away with purchasing it that day. I distinctly remember the driving home, stopping in Michigan City at a brewery just to get a beer in to relax my back a little bit before I drove home to Michigan. Now, to this day, my lower back does not bother me. So I feel, and if it does, it's a message to say, what do I need to learn? So it's my Achilles heel. And as Achilles has played a role with Chiron, the ultimate healing and the healer's journey, right? It was part of that story. We must look at these as our teachers and what can we learn from it? All right. So now, and you've heard me talk about that. So then I started thinking, man, I had another distinct time where pain was a portal, and this actually came at the time of Chiron's return. Now, Chiron's return is a point in one's life around 48 to 50, 52. It's that second mountain effect. It's like, damn, I've been climbing up the wrong wall this whole time. So you start to come a little deeper into, well, your wound, right? And to learn from that and to gain from that. So around 98, I was 48 years old, and my whole life went upside down. I started to go through a relationship breakup, which was a marriage that was part of for 20 years. You know, looking at a lot of things that I'd see in a different way in my life. It's a time that many people would say midlife crisis. So did I buy the convertible Jeep? Yeah. Did I buy the sports car? I mean, BMW Sport U? Yeah, did all that stuff. But there was this inner pain and inner challenge and inner voice that was kind of coming up at me. Advanced to 2020. So now this is the pain. My first one was a physical that introduced me to the mind body. This pain here was the pain of the shit in life that keeps you up at night. Keeps the mind going. It's a different type of pain. It's almost a psycho-spiritual pain is what I was experiencing then. And it has become a portal for me to my next step in my next evolution. There was a lot of pain involved. There's a lot of pain involved with other parties, which I'm coming to terms with all that and with myself, because sometimes when you look at the life you've been living and it's like, and you start going a different direction, like literally, these were my last days of being a pharmacist. I always had a half foot in, half foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out to the functional medicine thing. And I was never a vaccinating pharmacist. I'll have to do an episode on vaccinations. And when the company that I worked for them 3 days a week, kind of a part-time gig, but I was also doing their natural medicine side of things. It was a grocer, a regional grocer with pharmacy. They required that I become a vaccinating pharmacist, which I would not do. I lost my job. So now, you know, it's a good bit of income. Now, at the same time, I had another great opportunity where it was actually a presence. I was doing it. I was teaching functional pharmacy for an outfit that I would basically teach a class every week. And I was making considerable money off of it, to be honest. I mean, it was a really healthy mortgage payment every month on top of it. Well, their pharmacy side folded. They stopped doing it. So I was like, bam. So I had like all these big income sucks leave me at the time. I was also dealing with a lot of other financial challenges, meaning other bills, health related stuff that was coming up in life. There was a lot of that stuff that keeps you up in life, up at night. When I say to people, when people ask if they have trouble sleeping, oftentimes I'll say, let me guess, you're up between 2 and 4 in the morning and the mind's racing, right? That's when we're multitasking because we're dealing with stuff that happened in the past or stuff we're preparing for in the future instead of being present. But life throws this at us and it's a gift, as painful as it might be. So fast forward, relationship breakup, new relationship comes on board, leaving an area that I lived in for over 20 years, leaving jobs, relationships. Oh, and then I was working for another company and then COVID was happening. And and the part-time gig, but that's actually what got me out of Michigan down here to Southern Indiana, part-time gig. But they require, and this was for Optimum. Is it Optimum? Genoa. Yeah. Part of United Healthcare. But they required that I would get the COVID vaccine, which I refused to do, lost that job. So, in this small group of period of time, I was dealing with health issues with people close to me. I was dealing with financial losses on a grand scale. I was dealing with moving, right? So, out of a foundational element, possibly what you could call a supportive element. In the midst of COVID, I actually lost two dogs during this time. A lot of stress going on. There was a lot of pain. This was a big, big, big portal for me. And at the other side of it, this was the first time I started to get into me and learn more about myself, my own authenticity, I guess you could say my true self or whatever that might be. And I really hopped onto that second mountain. This is the time that I stepped 100% into functional care. I expanded my teaching, something that I absolutely believe I am meant to do. One of my paths to purpose is tweaking perceptions on people, helping them see things a little differently that they might not have been able to see. So over the last few years, my personal growth has expanded as far as who I am to myself, who I am in relationship, and what I'm doing for myself, and my gift on how to share this with the world. Now, I don't do it in a way of saying what I want to say, that it's like, it's my job to serve the world or to serve. Like, I don't use that verbiage. I kind of look at it as, do I enjoy what I'm doing? Do I love what I'm doing? Is it meaningful? And is it giving me purpose? And hopefully, is it, financing my life as well? Which it's kind of like, honestly, what this last many years have been, what this pain has been, extremely painful, emotional, physically still, keeping me up at night, the stress. And you feel that physical impact, as well. You don't feel as vital as you once had. But what it's much been like is kind of like when you see, if you've ever heard that analogy, like a sculptor starts with a block of clay or stone or whatever it might be, and they chisel away what's been inside. That has been this portal for me, my portal number 2, that has come at my Chiron return. And it's a really exciting time. So I'm sitting here on the eve, a couple months away in April, of my 55th time around the sun. And I look back and I know that there's a lot of pain that I've been through that could have been avoidable, but I don't know if I would have found myself at the spot, one, of closer to authenticity. Do I get caught up? Do I fall into defensive modes? Does sometimes my ego run me? Yeah. But have I gained a greater awareness, greater insight, and a greater ability to listen and take action? Yeah. One thing that has really come to mind, that was another, I think, gift out of this, as pain has been the portal, right, for purpose and potential. It's been something that Carl Jung has said, something to the aspect, let me give me the exact quote. I think I saved it here. Apparently I didn't, but it was something to the point of, you are not what you'll say you do, you are what you do, right? And that has been a big one for me. There's been a couple big, great learning periods out of this. One, it's not my job to fix everything in the world or for those around me. And two, I am not what I say I will do, but I'm what I actually do. So, gosh, I hope this has given you insight to this path of numbness, to feeling to heal, to the pain as the portal, to the better you feel, the better things go. I'm sitting here and I know there's going to be more challenges coming my way. And I know I still have to act as if for what I want in life, for that transmutation and that alchemy to continue. But if you're someone that's listening to this, what I ask of you is to look back on your life and look at your pain times. Ask yourself, when were you not feeling? If there was a time. Ask yourself, when were you feeling? Ask yourself, what was the pain, and maybe what did it represent? And what came out of that? Because I believe everything is an absolute lesson, as hard as it might be, as beautiful as it might be, for us to move forth. So, y'all, thank you so much. This is another episode of Man Unmedicated. Thank you for allowing me to share my story. And I did it in a way that I hope maybe you can find a relationship to it. and maybe kind of look within and what that might mean to you. All right. Till next time, y'all have a great one. Thanks for joining us on the Man Unmedicated podcast. If you're ready to take control of your health and join a community of men who are doing the same, head over to www.manunmedicated.com. And remember, true wellness isn't found in a pill bottle. It's built through real transformation. Until next time, keep pushing your peaks.